The moment you feel it rising in your chest, the heat, the pressure, the urge to say something sharp or to vanish, your brain is not asking for wisdom. It is asking for relief. And if you are listening right now, late at night, I'm guessing you know that feeling too well. The part that hurts is not only the emotion, it is the way it hijacks your plan for who you wanted to be. Most people think emotional regulation means staying calm, like a polished surface with nothing underneath. That is not regulation. That is suppression, which means pushing an emotion down without processing it. Suppression works in the short term, then it charges interest. It leaks out as sarcasm, numb scrolling, overeating, picking fights, or that strange emptiness where nothing feels worth doing. Regulation is different. Regulation is staying in contact with what you feel while choosing what you do next. Your nervous system is built for survival, not for your reputation, not for your relationships, not for your long-term goals. When your brain detects threat, it shifts into a faster operating system. The amygdala, which is your alarm center, turns up the volume. The prefrontal cortex, which is the part that helps you plan and inhibit impulses, goes offline a little. That is why you can know the right thing and still do the old thing. In that moment, you are not stupid, you are flooded. Flooded is a useful word, because when you are flooded, you cannot think your way out with one perfect sentence. You need to change the state of the body first. Emotional regulation is not only mental, it is physiological. Your body is the stage where the emotion is performing. Think about a time you opened your phone to answer one message and suddenly it is midnight. That was not a moral failure. That was operant conditioning, which means behavior shaped by rewards and relief. Your brain learned that a swipe can reduce discomfort. Boredom, loneliness, uncertainty, all of it can be softened with a small hit of novelty. That is emotional regulation too, just outsourced to an app. It works, but it trains you to of your own internal weather. Then the weather gets louder. Here is the brutal truth. Most of what we call emotional problems are regulation problems. Anger is often a boundary that never learned how to speak. Anxiety is often a mind trying to control the future because the present feels unsafe. Shame is often a social pain signal that says, if they see the real me, I will be rejected. Depression can be many things, but often it includes a protective shutdown, a nervous system conserving energy after too much stress. When you see emotions as signals, not as enemies, you stop fighting shadows. I want you to picture a kitchen late at night. The overhead light is too bright. The sink is full. You are tired but wired. You tell yourself you should clean, you should be better, you should have your life together. That word should is not guidance. It is a whip. And the brain responds to the whip with either compliance for a moment or rebellion. Then you feel worse and you reach for relief again. This is a loop. In psychology, we call it negative reinforcement, which means a behavior becomes stronger because it removes an unpleasant feeling. Avoidance is the king of negative reinforcement. You avoid the call, the workout, the honest conversation, the quiet moment. The relief teaches your brain, good job, do that again. Then the avoided thing grows teeth. It becomes scarier in your mind. That is how anxiety expands. Emotional regulation begins when you stop treating emotions like commands. An emotion is information plus energy. Information about what matters, energy to move you. But it is not a verdict. It is not a prophecy. It is not your identity. Identity is where people get trapped. If you say, I am an anxious person, you turn a state into a self. If you say, I am angry, you fuse with the emotion. Fusion means you are inside the emotion like a fish in water. You cannot see it because it is everywhere. A small shift is to say, I am noticing anxiety. I'm noticing anger. That is not a trick. That is cognitive diffusion, which means creating a little space between you and your thoughts or feelings. Space is where choice lives. There is another skill that sounds too simple to matter, but it changes the brain. Affect labeling, which means naming what you feel in plain words. Not a story, not a diagnosis, just a label. Sad, embarrassed, overwhelmed, jealous. When you label a feeling, you recruit the language networks in the brain, and that can reduce the intensity of the alarm response. It is like turning on a lamp in a dark room. The furniture was always there, but now you stop kicking it in the dark. A lot of people resist naming emotions because they think it will make them stronger. But unnamed emotions tend to drive the car. Named emotions can sit in the passenger seat. Emotional regulation also depends on what you believe emotions mean. If you believe anxiety means danger, you will treat it like danger. If you believe sadness means weakness, you will hide it. If you believe anger makes you a bad person, you will swallow it until it becomes resentment. These are cognitive distortions, which means biased thinking patterns that feel true but bend reality. One common distortion is catastrophizing, which means your mind jumps to the worst-case scenario and treats it like a forecast. Another is mind reading, which means assuming you know what others think of you without evidence. These distortions do not make you broken. They make you human. They are the brain trying to reduce uncertainty. The cost is that they increase suffering. The body side matters just as much. When your sleep is thin, your regulation is thin. When you are hungry, your patience shrinks. When you have been in bright screens and constant noise, your nervous system gets jumpy. People love to search for deep childhood reasons, and sometimes those reasons are real. But sometimes you are emotionally dysregulated because you are under-recovered. Your brain is an organ. It runs on fuel and rest. Still, there is a deeper layer. Attachment style, which means the pattern you learned for closeness and safety in relationships. If you learn that closeness is unpredictable, you might become hypervigilant. You scan for tone changes. You overthink texts. If you learn that your needs were too much, you might shut down and go distant. These are regulation strategies too. They were intelligent once. They kept you connected or protected. The problem is when an old strategy becomes your default in a new life. You can hear it in your own mind. The sudden tightening when someone takes too long to reply, the urge to send another message, or the urge to disappear and act like you do not care. Those are not random. They are your nervous system trying to restore safety. Emotional regulation is learning to give yourself safety without demanding it from the moment. One of the biggest shifts is moving from external regulation to internal regulation. External regulation is when you need someone else, or food, or alcohol, or work, or scrolling to change your state. Internal regulation is when you can change your state from the inside. Not perfectly, not instantly, but reliably enough that you trust yourself. Trust is the quiet goal. Self-efficacy is the term. It means the belief that you can handle what happens. People with strong self-efficacy still feel anxiety and sadness. They just do not interpret those feelings as proof they cannot cope. They interpret them as signals that they are in something that matters. So how do you build that trust without turning it into a rigid performance? I start with permission, not permission to act out. Permission to feel. Many people are at war with their own inner life. They treat feelings like intruders, but feelings are more like weather. If you scream at the rain, you just get wet and hoarse. Regulation is learning to carry an umbrella, to slow down, to wait, to choose where you step. When I feel a surge, I try to notice the first physical cue. For me, it is the jaw, the shoulders, the breath getting shallow. That is the earliest moment. That is the doorway. If I miss that doorway, I end up trying to regulate after the explosion. After is harder. Then I reduce speed, not with a dramatic pause, just a small reduction. I let my exhale get longer than my inhale. That tells the vagus nerve, which is part of the parasympathetic system, that we are not in immediate danger. Parasympathetic means the rest and digest mode. You cannot think clearly in fight or flight. You earn clarity by signaling safety to the body. Then I get specific about what the emotion is asking for. Anger might be asking for a boundary. Anxiety might be asking for preparation. Sadness might be asking for rest or connection. Shame might be asking for repair or compassion. The emotion is not always right about the method, but it is often right about the need. This is where people confuse impulse with need. The impulse says, send the angry text. The need says, be respected. The impulse says, drink. The need says, soften the stress. The impulse says, ghost them. The need says, feel safe. When you meet the need in a healthier way, the impulse loses power. There is a persuasion principle here, and it works on your own brain. You cannot talk yourself out of a feeling by insulting yourself. Your brain does not respond well to contempt. It responds to clarity and consistency. If you keep promises to yourself in small ways, your nervous system starts to believe you. That belief becomes a buffer. It is easier to regulate when you trust that you will take care of the problem tomorrow, or that you will speak up when it matters, or that you will rest when you need to. Habits are emotional regulation in disguise. The habit of checking your phone in silence. The habit of filling every gap with sound. The habit of staying busy so you never have to feel. These are not just habits. They are mood management systems. If you change them, you will feel more at first. That is not failure. That is your emotional range returning. A lot of people fear their emotions because they think emotions are infinite. Like, if I start crying, I will never stop. If I let myself feel anger, I will become cruel. But emotions are waves. They rise, peak, and fall if you do not keep feeding them with stories.